Hi, I'm Justin from workmanagement.tools, and in this video I'm going to show you how to automatically create invoices from ClickUp with multiple line items for different tasks. To make this happen, we need something that's going to take the actions required and connect everything together. We have ClickUp, we also have our invoice platform. In this video I'm going to use QuickBooks. To do that, we'll use the make.com automation platform. So ClickUp has automation internally, but it's very limited. Zapier is another common automation platform. It has decent capabilities, but Make has the most unlimited potential. We can do basically whatever we want in Make. So I generally recommend to people that they learn that one. I'm going to take you straight into the guts of it today, assuming that you already have some knowledge of how to use Make. If that's not the case, don't worry. I have a Make automation course. So it's designed to get you from zero to being able to design and build most of the automations that my clients ask for and that most businesses will need in only a couple of hours. So if you want the details for that, it is at workmanagement.tools/make, and I'll put that link in the video description as well as any current promotions. Okay, let's dive into it and jump into the platforms. Okay, so first of all, let's have a look at our setup in ClickUp. Now there's a number of different ways we could have done this. What I've got here is a space for clients and a list for each client. Because I want to invoice for multiple things at the same time as list items on the invoice. So I've got client A, I've got multiple deliverables, and several of them I'll invoice for. Now what I could have done is have a task for each client and then have these deliverables as subtasks. That works perfectly fine as well. But in this case, I'm going to do it with the list option. So here, each task is a different deliverable, and they have descriptions about what they are. And I want those to go on the invoice as well. If you want to invoice for time tracked, that's a slightly different scenario. I've actually got a full demonstration of that in the course if you do get that one in the video description. But for today, we're just going to invoice for deliverables and assume they have a set price. So what we'll do is we'll create a column and we'll create a money column. And we'll say amount or price or whatever you want to call that. Choose the correct currency view. Usually I do Australian dollars, I'm in Australia, but we'll do US dollars for today. And then we'll add our prices. Now we also have our QuickBooks up, so now we can start putting this automation together. So the first thing we want to do is figure out how it's going to trigger. So we want this whole list to basically trigger, and we're going to pull in those particular tasks. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. One way is we could have, say, the list color or status here change, and we could mark it as invoicing. And so we could have it listen for that. That's one option if we want to do it manually, but in my case, I think I just want to have it happen weekly. So I'll just trigger it once every week, and then anything that is ready for invoicing at the end of the week will get invoiced and then move to the invoice status. So let's start building that. We'll go into our scheduling here, and we'll say that this will run, let's say days of the week, and we'll do it on Friday at perhaps 5 p.m. Cool. Now what we want to have happen at that time is to list tasks from our ClickUp list. But we want to have that happen for all lists. So first we'll list all of our lists. So we'll go down to lists and say list all lists. And we'll only do so for lists in their certain folder. We only want to list them in that client space. Now it's showing that we need to have them in a folder. That's a little bit unfortunate. Obviously this module hasn't been updated. So that's fine, we can make that happen. We'll jump into ClickUp and we'll create a folder here. We'll just call it clients. And then we'll put those two lists into that folder. So now we can select that folder once we refresh. Great. And let's not have a limit here. We want to pull in all of them. Okay, so now it's going to pass through one bundle per list. Now for each one of those lists, we want to list all the tasks. Actually, let's filter for tasks though. So we'll list all filtered tasks. So the workspace ID, we'll select that. Space ID, we'll select clients. List IDs, we want to add that from our list all lists. Okay. And then we only want to pull in the status, which is, we need to get the naming of this right, ready for invoicing. So we'll say ready for invoicing. Capitals don't matter, but the exact matching does. And everything else can be left blank. Except limit, we want to again remove that and list everything that matches those particular filters. So we'll hit OK there, and let's try running that. Okay, so we got 2 bundles, one for client A, one for client B. So brilliant. And then the second module ran twice. The first time we got 2 bundles. Great. So one for deliverable 3 and one for deliverable 2. And so that matches deliverable 2 and deliverable 3. Excellent. So that's working. Okay, so now that we have our tasks that need to be invoiced for, let's check, and it looks like they're coming through with full information. So that's great. We can see under custom fields that it has the amount there. Perfect. Okay, now if we start going into QuickBooks, we can create a invoice. Now we need to add our QuickBooks account, so we'll hit add, save, and you won't be able to see this pop up, but it'll open up a pop-up that says, are you willing to connect your account, basically. You can just follow the wizard and accept the prompts. And there we go. So we need to select our customer. So the customer is going to be different every time. So we need to be able to map that value. So let's try selecting a customer here and just see what the value is. Okay, so they're numbered. So we're going to need a number from QuickBooks. Okay, so before we can create this invoice, we're going to need to do some extra things. We're going to need to search for a client to see if they already exist, and if they don't exist, we'll need to create a new one. Okay, so let's go get a customer, or let's go search for customers. Let's do that first. Search by field, sounds good. And we want to do email address. Okay, great. Email address is unique, and so it's a good one to look things up by. We really only want this to be limited by 1, and we need to select what that email address is going to be. So we'll say text equals, and then enter it. Now we need to pull that email address in from ClickUp. So currently we don't actually have it in ClickUp. I haven't entered this anywhere. So we need to choose how are we going to, for a particular client, we've got client A here, how are we going to have their email be entered in. So what I'd actually quite like is when we list the lists, I would like if it had the description come through. So let's test that actually. Let's say here, let's add a description, and our test fills email is test@test.com. Okay, so let's re-trigger that module and just see what comes through. Great, so we have content there. So if we choose to, on each of our lists, add the email of the client in the description, then we can pull that through. We need to be careful not to add anything else because it'll pull all of it through. But I'm actually pretty happy with that. That's how I want to organize this. So great. Now what we can do is we say equals our content from our first module. Great, limit 1. Now we've got a customer. Now let's try running that with the test@test.com email. And we get a result there. In particular, we get total number of bundles as 1. Let's try testing that with an email that won't work because we don't currently have a client in QuickBooks for this email. And our result is total bundles is 0. So let's put in a router there. And then if the customer exists, which means that the total number of bundles is numerically greater than 0. That's our actual kind of logical condition. Then we'll just create the invoice. But if that's not the case, if we don't currently have a customer, then we'll need to create a customer. So we'll go into where our customer is here. Create a customer to create a new customer. And in this case, customer doesn't exist. And we'll know that because the total number of bundles will be numerically equal to 0. Great. Okay, so in the case where the customer does exist, I want to map the customer, and we'll use the search for customers module. So we need to pull in information from that one. Okay, so customer ID, great. Now we need to add lines. So again, we're going to want to map this because there could be any number of line items. Now actually our current flow here is that each task here will trigger the rest of this automation on its own. And we don't actually want that. We want all tasks here to go through and trigger one single run of the rest of this. So we need to put in an aggregator. So here we'll chuck in an array aggregator. And our source module is list filtered tasks. Then we can choose a target structure type. Because we already have these later modules created, we can simply select lines. So now we're going to create what each aggregation is going to look like in terms of the data that's pulling through. So for each one, we want to pull the amount from the list filtered tasks. For each one, we want to pull the description of the relevant task. And quantity will always be 1. Here we don't need an item, so we can leave that off. Same with all the rest of these. Now in our create an invoice module, we can simply map this whole lines question and choose our array here. We'll hit OK, and let's test this out. Fantastic. So we've created our invoice here. Let's go have a look at it. Okay, so we'll go into invoices here. Okay, we can see our invoice, and if we open it up, we can have a look. Okay, so we've got our basic details here. We perhaps could enter in the customer email, but we've got our 2 line items with the descriptions. We don't have our task name in there, so we should perhaps add that. Okay, so let's jump back in, and here, instead of just going description, let's do first task name hyphen description. Great. Hit OK there. We also want to make sure we have the client's email. So we'll show advanced settings on this module. So we'll add their email to bill email. Great. Let's test that again. Now we are getting an error here. That's because it's trying to process that second bundle, which is client B, and there are no tasks in there, so it's having an issue. That's fine, we'll ignore that for now. Great, so we've got a new invoice. Let's have a look. And we can see we've now got an email in here, and we've got that full name and description in our line items. Awesome. Now, lastly, we need to decide what we want to do. We could just come here and manually send these, or we could also add another module to have them be sent. So here we can go send an invoice. Select our invoice ID and send to. And this could be one or multiple email addresses. Here we'll just send it to the client. Done. Now we need to check our second route here if the client doesn't exist. So we'll just clone these and put them on this route. And then we need to do a couple of updates. So here, when we're creating the invoice, the customer ID is not going to be from that search module. It's going to be from the create a customer module. And then our send invoice, our ID is going to be from that new create an invoice module. Great, and we are done. So this is a automation so that every week for each of our client lists, it will invoice for all of the tasks in the ready for invoicing status. Now we do have a final part here. We need to change those tasks into the invoiced status. So for that, we'll go into ClickUp and we'll say edit a task. Now we're going to need to add it to both of our lines of automation here. We could do this earlier, but I prefer to have it after the invoicing, just in case an error happens. We don't want it to be marked as invoiced too soon. Now, right now, this is all in one single bundle, so we need to get multiple bundles for each filtered task. So I'm actually just going to clone that list filtered task again. Cool, so we'll have the exact same settings. It'll create multiple bundles. Each of those multiple bundles will go through an edit task module, and all we want to do is change the status to, and we need to check the exact name here, invoiced. Great, done. No, now task ID, we need to select that from list filtered tasks. Perfect. Okay, and we'll copy those so that this will happen no matter which line it goes down, whether the customer existed or didn't. We'll line that all up, check what that error is. We need to adjust the ID because it's on a different line. Perfect. We'll save that and let's give it a run. Excellent. Great, and so there's our invoice ready to go. Okay, and in ClickUp, those two deliverables are now marked as invoiced. Perfect. Okay, and so that is our automation, so that every week, each of our client lists will invoice any items that are ready for invoicing. And that will then be sent to the client if we wish, and then those tasks will be updated. Okay, and that's how you do it. If you're having trouble with any of that, would like me to do it for you, or have a larger scale automation project that you'd like me to do for you, I build automations for clients. So just reach out to me at make@workmanagement.tools and we can see if we're a good fit for each other. Otherwise, if you'd like to teach yourself, grab that automations course in the video description. It'll get you off to a flying start in no time flat. It's the course that I wish I'd had at the beginning. I procrastinated taking on Make because of its steeper learning curve for much longer than I should have. So don't make the same mistake. Powerful, flexible automation can change your work and business, and you can get that today. That course makes it really simple, and you'll be up and running in about 2 to 3 hours, depending on how much space you want to put in between watching the different videos. All right, that's all from me. Be well.